it was just like, why are there still people alive? And why do I not care who gets killed next?
When he was laying down and he opened up the cloth and the penis fell on his face and it was right there. I mean, I was laughing at that.
All right, Kevin, since you allegedly loved this movie, tell us how you felt about it for real.
Well, I mean, once I realized it was a parody, it actually wasn't that bad. I mean, it started out in a cheesy like manner where you could just see the little puppet's feet, coming across the top of the screen. I'm like, oh my god, this could be so stupid. And then he shows up, and I'm like, oh god, this is even stupider than I thought it was gonna be. But I mean, it has some jokes that actually hit. It made me laugh. There's parts where I was chuckling through it. Um, there were parts where you could tell it was done in like the cheapest way possible. Green screen, costume across the green screen, and stuff like that. But I mean, it was so corny. It was actually kind of charming. It was not that bad. I'd give it a 7 on a scale of 10.
Whoa, that's
Yeah,
a
I know,
that's a pretty
right?
high number.
That is quite high.
So I personally think that even for what it was trying to go for, it still kind of missed the mark. I mean, I knew it was going to be ridiculous. I knew it was just going to be like making fun of Disney, of course. But I felt like the kills could have been better. I was expecting like Terrifier level kills, especially since Steamboat Willie was played by David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown in the Terrifier series. So I was expecting really, really good and graphic kills. They kind of were lame a little bit. There was a couple good ones. There's one that we're definitely going to talk about later that you probably know what I'm referring to. But I mean, I would give it like a just because I knew it was going to be campy, cheesy, corny. I'll give it a 5.
Well, I also knew that this movie was going to be janky. It had a pretty low budget. And I mean, it's a spoof. By judging by the trailer, you can tell it wasn't going to take itself seriously. It was definitely made to be a slasher, but not even like a halfway serious slasher, just like a almost Sharknado level of you know not taking itself seriously. But with that being said, and with that expectation going in, I still just found this movie to be, by and large, really boring. Like by the time it was like an hour in, I just was not interested. I did not care to see the rest of the movie. I just didn't. I didn't want to. Uh, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. But for now, I'll just say I got to give it like a 3. There are redeeming qualities. It is not a 0. It is not a 1. And it is not a 2. But I don't have a whole lot good to say about it.
I'm gonna take my 5 back and give it a 4.
So we're all kind of across the board.
I'm gonna give it a 4.
Yeah. Well, if I was into this genre of movies, I'd probably give it a lower score. It only got that good of a score from me because I was not expecting anything from it. I was expecting it to be stupid. I was expecting it to be cliche, but it had some jokes throughout that I actually found myself laughing at. So I can't hate on it too much. I loved how it was making fun of Disney. There was one part where he's talking about um, if you try to swim across the river, you'll be frozen. Let it go. I mean, they were literally just clowning on Disney the whole time, and I just thought that was funny. And that's why I gave it a better score than you'd expect. But overall, like the character design, the acting, I mean, it was actually terrible. But like I said, once you realize that it's a parody, a spoof, then you're like, okay, so maybe I can enjoy it a little bit. And I know you were comparing it to what did you compare it to?
I compared it to Terrifier, or Alex might have said Sharknado. Maybe that's what you're talking about.
Sharknado, yeah. Um, I saw it more in the lines of, like, I forget if is it called, not, is it Scary Movie, the one the Wayans brothers did where they were
Yeah, scary
clowning on.
movie. Yeah.
I kind of compared it to something like that. I mean, I felt going in that it was, as Alex said, a spoof. To me, I used the word parody, but once I realized that's what it was, it wasn't that bad. It didn't rub me as harsh or anything like that.
Yeah, I did notice a couple shots at Disney that I thought were cool. I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but when Steamboat Willie has that uh, mechanic under mind control and she's wearing the mouse ear hat, that was a clear reference to like Disney adults who are like grown people who go to Disney and they're wearing like the Mickey Mouse hats and they're just obsessed with Disney, everything Disney. So I thought that was cool. That was a cool shot at those
Mm-hmm.
people. I respected that. So Kevin, to your point. Also, let me say, I didn't even catch the "you'll be frozen, let it go" thing. I must just be stupid. But
No, I
that
didn't
is
catch that either.
hilarious.
They made reference. They were literally quoting off some lines from certain movies. I think there was a part where he said, "I'll make a man out of you," which was a reference to Mulan. But they had these little quips in there, which is why I enjoyed it so much because they were almost passive aggressive in their delivery with these lines. Um, which is why I enjoyed it. But like I said, overall, I mean, if you look at the movie as a whole, the acting was terrible. The monster development was terrible. I mean, it looked like a cheap costume, but you know, it had little bits of humor here and there that I enjoyed, and there was people in the theater that were laughing.
Yeah, same
There
with
was certain,
us. There's
Yeah.
people in our theater
especially
laughing.
yeah, especially with all the penis stuff. I mean, that made me laugh. There was parts where when he was laying down and he opened up the cloth and the penis fell on his face and it was right there. I mean, I was laughing at that. I mean, I was back to being an 8-year-old boy again, laughing at penis jokes.
Kevin, I thought about you during that scene when he got his, you know what, bitten off and was screaming and blood was spraying all in her face. I was literally like picturing your face, and I was like, I bet Kevin's getting a kick out of this right now.
Actually, I thought of you when that happened. I was like, this is the part of the movie that will actually enjoy because there's a penis in it. And by the way, and you might want to edit this part out, the girl in that movie that shows her tits, I want to know her name because I thought she was cute.
Dude, I made the comment to Alex. I was like, these girls probably have OnlyFans.
Probably.
That's probably where they found them, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's probably partially from me having like a somewhat repressed childhood, but I generally don't find ultra like crass humor very funny. Um, it doesn't necessarily bother me a whole lot, but like I will say like that scene I was not laughing. I was kind of just like dead face, just like I can't believe I'm watching this right now. And the movie in general, like I did not find it to be funny. And that's one of my main criticisms is like, okay, you made a spoofy movie that's silly, but where are the jokes? Like I understand that they referenced Disney in a lot of times. I mean, they use the lines, sometimes kind of sneakily where I missed it because my logical centers were turned off
Mm.
for self defense against this film. But some of them were very overt, like, oh, it is a small world after all. But to me, it's like, okay, you're referencing Disney movies. So that's not funny in and of itself. Uh, yeah, I felt it was a little bit lacking in that department.
I didn't look at it as funny as much as I looked at it as them saying like, okay, it's been 100 years since Steamboat Willie came out or whatever. It's no longer under copyright. We're gonna take everything we possibly can from you, Disney. We're gonna shove it in your face. We're gonna make it as blatant as possible, and you can do nothing about it. So I looked at it less like trying to be funny or having like a comedic side and mostly just being like a middle finger to Disney. That's kind of how I took it. Like they're taking a beloved character and making him murder people and actually two beloved characters, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, it was just a big F you to Disney, big middle finger, and I thought that was cool.
I guess I don't place a whole lot of value on uh that being present on that middle finger. Like I don't really care because I know Disney doesn't care. I mean, you actually think like Disney execs are like wringing their hands like, "Oh no, our beloved character is being besmirched." Like it doesn't even look like him. It doesn't even look anything remotely similar to Mickey Mouse or to Steamboat Willie. Like I think I don't know. I'm done.
I do think that they care just because are you guys familiar with the YouTube animator called Meat Canyon? Have you guys ever seen his shorts before?
Mm-hmm.
So he made a short about Disney adults. It was like 10 minutes long, and Disney actually got into contact with him and made him blur out parts of the animation that like showed them in a distasteful manner. So they definitely do care. They're a lot like Nintendo. They'll just come after you for basically anything. So I feel like Disney actually would have a problem with this movie. And I think it's funny. Let me point this out, Alex. You'll remember this. There's a scene where the EMT in the film says someone's blood sugar's low, and she hands them what's clearly a Gatorade, and they've taken the label off so they don't get sued by Gatorade, but yet they're just like blasting Disney with everything they possibly can. I just think that's really funny.
Well, I guess they have uh a legal defense. I mean, it's public domain. Now, there is something. Actually, I don't want to bring this up yet. I'm gonna save it. I think that you guys missed something big because I missed it, and I honestly can't believe I missed it.
Wait, really? Like you looked at something after the fact and found that we missed it?
Yes, but I'm gonna save it. I, so something I'll say about this film is I think that even spoofy movies have to do certain things or follow certain basic filmmaking principles or just art principles in general to be enjoyable. I don't think it's enough to just have a like a bunch of blood and gore. You need to pair it with something. And a lot of the really great slasher movies that people can think of are not just people being killed with no context or no stories behind it. There are great characters in those films.
I just
What are you
got
going
it,
to say,
Alex.
Will?
I just got it, Alex. I just had a eureka moment, man. Those Jersey birthday party girls were supposed to represent every single
Yes.
princess. Oh my
They
fucking
are
Yeah, you
goodness.
didn't catch that?
Oh my
You didn't
fucking
catch that?
goodness. No, I caught the Cinderella slipper thing, but but then I just made the connection. Every single princess that was every
Yes.
princess, all of them.
Yeah,
Oh my
well,
God.
And their
the one I was
names, their
celebrating-
names,
their names
dude, their
were matched
names
up. One
are
was
Bella,
Jazzy and
Cindy, Ilsa. Dude, I actually when I read that, I am so disappointed in myself for not realizing that. It's disgusting that I did not pick up on that.
Dude, okay. I would say that I'm like an over average smart person, but you can see how my brain works. That just went completely over my head when I was watching the film, but when I thought about it for 4 seconds, I got it.
You knew when you knew that there was a big secret.
Did
When
you
I
guys
think of the
notice
great-
the guy's name was Pete?
Peter Pan.
And the guy that the deckhand guy, his name was Pete. They kept calling him Captain Pete.
Yeah.
He's also a reference to one of Mickey's friends.
But yeah, I guess I just think the writing was very sloppy in this film, to the point where they tried to do so many things that nothing was really fleshed out at all, and it ended up just being like a million disjointed mini stories that you don't really care about in the slightest. So like just think about all the things that are going on. You have Selena is kind of the main character, and she has all we know about her is that she's artistic and she has dreams, but she doesn't like New York, and she is falling in love with Pete, the deckhand, and Pete's thing is he doesn't want more responsibility, but more responsibility is being forced on him throughout the film. You have the EMT lady, who I don't understand what her place is in the film, but she is there throughout. And you have her interactions with the old guy who has these premonitions about what's going to happen and also has health issues. And you have the kid and his mom, and the kid literally says like two lines in the movie. And you got Moses, the big guy that takes care of the kid, and you've got um like the captain and the first mate dying and the power dynamics going on there. There's so many little mini stories, and none of them are worth anything, in my opinion. Um, or they're worth very little, with the exception of the princesses. Now that I know about the princesses, I see so much potential in what they could have done with those five girls. Can you imagine if they had started this film with giving us a piece of each of those girls' lives and like tying them in some, funny ways to their princess identities, but also just making them like real New York rich girls, and then bringing them together to the steamship and them actually having real like dynamics as they're being killed off one by one? That would have been a movie.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you about the missed potential thing. I don't know how I didn't see that at the time. I mean, I definitely got the Cinderella reference with the slipper coming off of the main chick. I think I was so caught up in their like New Jersey like super intense accent that I it kind of threw me. But I think that the probably the best kill scene in the entire film was with Jasmine and the other chick when they're taking selfies and making a TikTok, and they start doing like the ahegao face, and it's just like 30 seconds of just agonizingly like sticking their tongue out, crossing their eyes, and like literally drooling and just doing it over and over and over again. And then Steamboat Willie like cuts their heads in half with a forklift. I was like, okay, I like that one. That was a good one. That was funny. It made me chuckle.
And something good that I can say is that some of the kill scenes were pretty good, and a lot of the prosthetics were good. Um, the For one, David Howard Thornton, I mean, his getup was pretty unnerving and pretty awesome to look at. Um, and the like the sawing off the neck with the wire, that was done really well. Uh, that stuff was really great. I just think that is sort of like it just wasn't attached to anything meaningful, and it's not so much that the story has to be like serious. It's just that it has to be enough of a story for you to actually care about it to some extent, or to at least be invested. Because that was my problem, was that an hour into the film I did not care about a single character or a single dynamic, and it was just like, why are there still people alive, and why do I not care who gets killed next?
Yeah, they were kind of just introducing characters out of nowhere and killing them. Like that cop might have been in like one 10-second scene, and then he was led away by his girlfriend and then killed. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. I thought it was kind of cheap how they electrocuted like 30 people at the same time. That could have been 30 people that were like 30 short yet really good kills, but instead they're just all instantly dead.
Yeah, that probably should have been like a bloodbath scene rather than everyone just like with shocks going around.
Yeah.
But speaking of bloodbath scenes, I want to give an example of something that I look to as like a shining beacon of a slasher movie that does not take itself seriously, and was low budget, not quite as low as this film, but low budget, doesn't take itself seriously, slasher. It's all about the gore, right? Brain Dead, directed by Peter Jackson, 1992. That movie,
The Peter Jackson?
the Peter Jackson.
Okay.
This is, yeah, one of his earlier films, not the earliest, but this may be a good option for a future video, actually, for a full review of it. But it's a slasher, and it just, the gore by the end of the film is unreal. Many people consider this to be the goriest film ever made. He was also able to establish a genuinely compelling romance in the midst of this ridiculous film. I mean, it the characters have backstories. They have motivations, believable motivations, and you're rooting for certain things to happen or not to happen as the gore is going on. Yeah, everything about that film is basically what Screamboat did wrong, but the opposite way.
Yeah, we'll have to probably do a
Um,
video on that in the future because I enjoyed that film as well. I remember thinking that the main characters love interest was pretty hot. I don't remember what she looked like. I just remember thinking she was hot.
They're both very sort of unique looking people, but their dynamic works really well. Um, and yeah, even that low budget slasher movie actually has a score. Screamboat does not have a real score. I swear the music that they put in there, they found just like free unlicensed orchestral bits of randomness. Like it was the most generic. It was so bad it was distracting how generic the music was.
Along those same lines, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but when they show the image of Walt Disney beside Steamboat Willie and then eventually beside the other character that we'll mention later, Steamboat Willie is clearly AI in that picture. And I'm talking about when they're holding up the photograph with like from the 1900s with Walt Disney and Steamboat Willie's beside him on the ground. That is literally an AI mouse. Like they plugged that into ChatGPT and got that image, and I hated that. I don't know. I don't even really have a problem with AI. Just the fact that they couldn't like make a little costume for that picture and touch it up, all they had to do AI. I was like, dude, that's just dumb.
Well, and the special effects in general, you know, I try to give leeway with special effects, but my God, the compositing in this film, and it's frustrating because Steamboat Willie's prosthetics, like I said, are amazing. They look great, but it's totally crippled. The effect of it is totally crippled because you can never get a sense for the the character in the space. Anytime that there's humans, you basically don't see Steamboat Willie. He's just like going around the edges. He's like teleporting and whatever. And when it shows him, it does one of two things. It's either a super close-up shot of his face, and the background is like a blurred CG version of where he's supposed to be standing, and it's just exceedingly obvious that he's not really there, and you can't get a sense for the size. He always looks like a full-size human when they do those close-ups, but it's like, no, he's supposed to be like this big, but you can't tell. And the other kind of shot they do is where they do actually place him like in a scene where you can tell his size, but they literally just green screened him and plopped him in the scene without doing anything else to it. They didn't even put shadows under his feet. Like, they could have, I'm dead serious about this. They could have found people to do their CG work for free that would have done a better job than what they had.
Yeah, I think I didn't even realize until I first started watching the film. I didn't realize Steamboat Willie was they were trying to make him mouse sized or at least close to a mouse size. I think they would have eliminated so many problems for themselves if they would have just made him human sized. There's not a rule that says that their slasher version of Steamboat Willie has to actually be a mouse. I think a human sized half mouse, half human hybrid coming out of the ship's depths and terrorizing people is fine. He doesn't have to be a mouse.
Probably would have been scarier.
I think so.
But it's also just like there are so many established ways and very good ways to make a character, a human, look small. I mean, the Lord of the Rings alone had like 6 or 7 entirely separate techniques, both using forced perspective or digital effects or stunt doubles. There's so many different ways that you can effectively make someone look small and make it believable. They could have even built like a giant set around him, but they did none of that. It's complete laziness, and I don't accept like low budget as being the excuse for that. I think they had plenty of budget. They just didn't care. They were just like, no, it doesn't matter if he really looks small.
Did you find anything reporting on the amount that their budget was for this movie?
I think it's 2 million, so somewhere around 2 million.
Where'd you find that? Because something I'm looking at right now says the film was made on a budget of $15,000.
Forbes says it was a $2 million budget. It says 2 million. I mean, because you got to think like $15,000. That's probably not even enough to pay all of the people that were involved.
That's not
'Cause
even
there
enough
were
to pay one person.
Not really.
I was
Yeah, I
saying,
mean,
I know it seems low. I'm just like I was just saying that's all I could find was.
the only source I'm seeing is Forbes, um, which should be pretty reputable. But yeah, and like the Steamboat, like they did rent a whole gigantic steamship to.
Well, I thought the camera work with the actual city itself, the angles in the city were great. I like the cityscapes. There were parts on the steamboat. I mean, the steamboat set was pretty good. I mean, for what they are. My only issue was with the graphics when it came to portraying the mouse. When there was humans on screen, it looked like they were carrying around a doll. When it was him, you could tell it was a guy in a suit with really, really bad green screen, you know. But for the budget, I mean, CGI is probably the most expensive part of these big budget movies. So for a budget of $2 million, they did what they could do. It was fairly decent. You know,
I reject that.
I didn't absolutely hate the movie, is what I'm saying. I mean, it's not one of those movies I go back and once it comes out on Prime Video, I'm gonna go watch it. But um, I didn't see it. Most of the time when I see a movie, I'm like, I wish I had that 2 hours back. It wasn't the case with this one. I was like, that wasn't so bad. I got my popcorn, I got my little icy, and I was okay. I was like, fine. You know, it was just a night out. I didn't complain about it. So it was not as bad as I was expecting. I mean, obviously, overall, when movie quality, it was terrible, but it was better than I expected. What I thought they were going to put out.
It was better than Wolfman.
Oh, that's tough for me between these two, honestly.
I would
Hey,
watch this
and
again
it's
before
hard to say
Wolfman
that
any
too.
day.
Yeah, Wolfman had a higher budget.
Wolfman was
You
boring.
know,
Well, I thought this was
I'd be
boring. That's the
okay.
thing.
See, I'd have been okay with the low budget rendering of this movie if it had a story. I agree there was really no story. There was no really going. I mean, the movie was almost over before I realized where Willie was going. He was looking for Minnie, or the Minnie Mouse version. That wasn't very clear at all in the movie until close to the end. So the story was terrible. They were making jabs at Disney, which made me chuckle, but I felt like they took a couple jabs and said, "Nah, let's not do that." You know, if they'd have gone full fledged with it, it may have been something better. I feel like there was, like you said, there was a bunch of little mini stories there. If they had just flushed some of those out, you know, to completion, it might have been a better movie.
Let's talk about the Minnie Mouse thing for a second. So I'm gonna give myself some credit here. About halfway through the film, when Willie had expressed his love for Selena, was that her name? Selena?
Yeah.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. When Willie expressed his love for her, I turned to Alex and I said, "She's supposed to be Minnie Mouse." And my evidence was that she had polka dots. She had like a polka dot bag that she was carrying and a pink shirt. And I was like, she is supposed to be Minnie Mouse. And my suspicions were confirmed, I don't know, like 30 minutes later, when the film basically explicitly tells you that. Uh, I was proud of myself for catching that. I don't really understand it because Steamboat Willie understands that Minnie Mouse is a mouse that's his stature and she was lost at sea. So why would he think this random chick from New York is Minnie Mouse because she carries a polka dot bag? I didn't really get that, but I knew that's what they were going for. And the entire purpose of that, like you said, Kevin, is to give Steamboat Willie a motive because otherwise he's just randomly running around and butchering people, which in my opinion would have been fine and actually better. The fact that they kind of shoehorned in a motive that he's looking for his long lost love, I thought that was a little too far away from the original vision, which should have been just to murder as many people as possible. But they,
Vengeance for being locked up for decades or
yeah,
however
exactly.
long it was.
Yeah,
But I
that's
mean, they
enough of a
didn't make that
motive.
clear. I mean, there was no clarity on what his actual motives were. He was just randomly going. It's like he escaped and just decided to kill. You know.
Well, it's the same thing with
I mean,
Terrifier. Like, I know that that's directed by a completely different person, but they used the same actor. And I really think they were trying to take a little bit of inspiration from Terrifier. They were trying to have an almost all powerful antagonist who just butchers people and really loves doing it and super sadistic and loves gore. I mean, those are the same. So they took a lot of inspiration from Terrifier. They used the same guy, but it just didn't hit the same mark for me. I think the first Terrifier, which was like filmed in a warehouse on a budget of like $20,000, was probably better than this film. But I will say, David Howard Thornton, best part of this film by far. You guys have up to this point kind of given him no credit for like his character acting and his facial expressions and how he can express himself physically without even having to say anything. I actually think that he was the best part of the film, and it was amazing to watch him do his work because he was more talented than any other person on the entire set, in my opinion.
He did get a lot of laughs in the theater I was in with a lot of those gestures he was making.
I agree with you, Will. Yeah, like the sort of the same way that I'm saying like the killings don't really mean anything when they're not attached to a story. Um, Similarly, the good prosthetics wouldn't mean anything if they weren't attached to a good actor, but they are. And yeah, his performance is great. And to be fair to the creators of this film, everyone involved, the the whole dynamic of the cartoon mouse killer was pretty creative. The way that like he moved was very cartoon-esque, and some of the ways that he killed people, not all the ways, but some of the ways he killed people kind of used like cartoon physics. Uh, and I thought that that worked really well. And yes, his body language and everything was great. Yeah, he was definitely the best part.
I'll tell you one thing. I'm never going to go to New York, and I'm never going to ride a New York ferry. That's what this movie did for me. I'm like, this place is disgusting. What is this?
The whole New York thing was, I mean, really every like mini storyline bugged me, but that one was one of the most perturbing to me. Was like showing all this terrible stuff with New York, and Selena's like, "Oh yeah, I hate this place," and then at the end of the movie, I don't know what sort of like revelation she was supposed to have. Was she supposed to like New York more after
Yeah.
all that? I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, because the EMT from Seattle told her that, you know, after you've been through this, you're basically an honorary New Yorker, even though that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I hated that New York storyline, and I also hated the EMT character. She was terrible actress, very boring. Just they should have cut her out of the film. She was running around handing people Gatorades, basically. I
Now
think I think
let me ask you this, since you said you didn't like that actress. Is this going into the mentality that this was a parody? This was meant to be, she was meant to be acted that way? Do you think it was really bad acting, or do you think it was meant to be acted that way?
I think it was a little bit of both, to be fair. But she was just kind of bland and boring. Like, let me think of another example. So, all of the Disney princesses, their acting was terrible, but it was funny. Like, it was clear that they were trying to not take themselves seriously, is what I mean. The EMT seemed like she was genuinely trying to act, but her line delivery was so bland. She had like the same tone through the entire film, much like I have the same tone throughout all of these videos. And it was just like, just every time she came on the screen, I was like, what is this chick gonna say? Like, it was either blood sugar or everything's gonna be okay. And it's just like, dude, shut up.
No, her character was a net negative on the film. Like the whole thing should have been gone. But I also think that about like most of the characters, honestly, like you don't have that much leeway with a stupid low budget slasher film for character development. You have to be careful with your screen time. And rather than giving like two or three characters, say 20 minutes of screen time each so they have real stories, they gave like 10 characters like 2 minutes each. It's like nothing.
I thought the captain was funny. The original captain who got his head sawed off, he was legitimately funny and a good actor. I have to give that guy credit.
He was all right, but he was barely in it.
His head was in it for longer than his living body.
It's true. I'm still hung up on the Disney princess thing. Like, I don't know if it was. I started to say this earlier and then I stopped myself, but I don't know if it was like a copyright issue, where yeah, Steamboat Willie is public domain, but some of the Disney princesses may not be.
Oh no, yeah, they're not. They could not have gone into that. Yeah, there's no way they could have gone into that at all. They would have gotten the pantsuit off of them.
Maybe I did look it up and I got confusing answers. I want to look it up again. Let's see.
Some of
They're
the
probably not.
stories that Disney has put out, they do not own the rights to. So some of the princesses may be open. They're not strictly Disney creations, so they don't own the
Right.
copyrights to.
Yes, because
Like,
they're fairy tales.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Like
Snow
Cinderella.
White. I know Snow White is not a Disney property. That somebody else can make a Snow White movie and not worry about being sued.
Right, but you can't be like, this character is a representation of Princess Jasmine. Here's what they did in
Yeah.
the Disney movie, and be like using stuff that Disney came up with. And they were like wearing the same dress colors as well, which is probably also pushing a boundary.
Well, but the thing is, and okay, this
No,
is
because
going
you
to
can't
become
copyright colors.
If
yeah.
it, look, I'm not arguing on Disney's behalf. I'm just saying I personally feel like they couldn't dive into those character storylines more because they would have gotten just immediately sued. That's what I think.
I think that I'm definitely not an expert on copyright law, but I'm pretty sure you can parodize things. Like for instance, like Spaceballs. I'm pretty sure that that was completely legal. Despite all of the very obvious references to the characters, like as long as you're transforming the idea of the character, I think it's like pretty much fair game. And look at how close they came. I mean, they did put in 5 characters with names that are almost exactly the same as the Disney princesses, wearing the same colors as the Disney princesses. So where, if that's fine and legal, then why wouldn't it be legal for them to have just given those people actual backstories?
Okay, so from a very brief search that I just did, and you guys probably searched up the exact same thing, my interpretation of what I'm reading is that the visual depictions of the princesses are 100% copyright. So they're already towing a line by making them look similar. So if they then dove into some storylines that Disney may have also created, that's just like getting themselves in too hot of water. And
Well, see, that's I wouldn't advocate for them to use the same storylines though. Like it would be completely different. It would be like, for instance, okay, Cinderella, would be like a diva, like maybe well, okay.
she already
I
lost
don't
the
know how
slipper.
I don't know how closely you would want to like parallel the actual fairy tales, but you could create a cast of women who each have like defining characteristics and they have a dynamic. So you could have one that's maybe like a drug addict, okay? And you have one that's just like she's rich and that's her thing. And you have one that's like I don't even know. Maybe she's an acrobat. I don't know, but
A contortionist.
you give them actual identities, right? That people can relate to, and they're assigned to a Disney princess. They aren't actually the Disney princess. They don't have the same name, and they don't have the same backstory. But you have the comparison there. I think that could have been done pretty well.
Well, maybe they'll do that in the sequel. And speaking of that, so
They're all dead.
the movie ended on a pretty clear cliffhanger. Kevin, I don't know if you stayed for the post credit scene or not, but do you guys think there's actually going to be a sequel?
I mean, I'm pretty sure it made more than it cost significantly. So it's very possible.
I guess it really depends on how the movie does. I mean, there's been many movies I've seen that have ended on a cliffhanger like that never got a sequel because of budgeting and stuff like that. But of course, I'm thinking of more bigger budget movies that can't afford the budgeting. If the budget for the sequel is $2 or $3 million, I could see a sequel, just like Terrifier 1, 2, and 3. Those probably I can't really say they were bad movies because I haven't seen them, but those probably didn't deserve sequels, but got sequels, or they did deserve sequels.
They did deserve sequels. You guys, yeah, you need to watch those movies.
But I mean, it's a lot easier to greenlight a sequel if the budget's $3 million compared to $30 million. So I mean, with a low budget for a sequel, I could see it happening.